The Young King. Part 1: The Secret of the Old King. A long time ago, there was a king. When he died, he didn't have a son who would become king. People around him were worried. They asked, who will be the next king? The king did tell a secret before he died, though. His only daughter, the princess, had a child. She married a normal man behind his back, and they had a son. A few people said her husband was an artist, while others said he was a singer. But no one knew who he was, and they didn't tell anyone about their secret son. A week after the baby was born, some guys took him while his mother slept. The princess died right away. Some said it was because they were sad. Some people said that poison was put in her drink. The men left the child with a poor family. This poor family lived in the woods, and the boy worked as a guard. All day, he took care of goats. The boy must be the new king when I die, the old king said. His helpers were sent into the forest. Find the boy and bring him here. People who worked for the palace found the boy and brought him there. He was very happy when the boy got there. He fell in love with everything beautiful around him right away. He took off his old leather robe and put on his nice new clothes. He then began to look around the castle. He ran from room to room in the house, stopping to look at the lovely statues, paintings, and jewelry. The young king spends all his time admiring statues, the people of the city said about him. Beauty and art are the most important things for him. In fact, the young king was so interested in pretty things that he wanted more of them. He sent people to India to buy jade and ivory. He sent some men to Persia to get silk rugs, and others to the north to look for amber. People on his staff were told to look for green jade in the magic tombs of the Egyptian kings. All of these things crossed the young king's mind, but his crowning robe stood out the most. After 16 years, he would be crowned king the next day. As a crown prince, he was very proud of his beautiful gold dress, ruby crown, and pearl scepter. Men were told to work day and night to get their coronation clothes ready. Search the whole world for the biggest rubies for my crown and the most beautiful pearl for my scepter, he stated. The young king was in his fancy bedroom, thinking about the clothes he would wear to become king. He looked around him at night. The room was very pretty, with lots of pink, gold, and silver. He could smell honeysuckle, hear a nightingale singing, and see the moon through the window. Someone came and put flower petals on his pillow. He was glad. He was going to be crowned tomorrow. He shut his eyes and went to sleep at midnight after playing beautiful music on his guitar. The young king had a dream that night. Part 2: The Dreams. This was the king's dream as a child. He is in a scary, dark building. The small windows have bars on them, so not much sunshine can come in, and it smells awful. But the young king sees a lot of people working in the dim light. They're making clothes. They're really thin. They look like they're hungry, and their hands are shaking from being so tired. It's dark in the room, and there are sick kids sitting there. The young king keeps an eye on them. Aman gets mad at him and asks, "Why are you looking at me? Are you a spy for my master?" The young king asks, "Who is your master?" "A man like me, but I'm hungry and my clothes aren't very nice." He has a lot of money and wears nice clothes. All day, we work for him. He drinks the wine we make for him. He eats the food while we work on the land. We work for him. But this is free land, the young king says. You are no man's slave. Weak men are weak men's slaves in war. When there is peace, poor people work for rich people. Are you all slaves? Yes, the girls and women. The young and the old. The young king sees the cloth on the machine all of a sudden. It is made of gold. The young king is really scared. The gold cloth you are making is very pretty. What's it? It's for the young king's coronation robe, the man says. The young king woke up and screamed when he heard this. But then he looked out the window and saw the yellow moon. He quickly fell back to sleep. He had one more dream. He had a second dream in which he was on a long boat. It's very hot outside, and 100 slaves are working and pulling the boat. He is as black as ebony and wears a red silk hat on his head. He is the master of the boat. He wears big silver earrings. The slaves are being whipped while they work. When the boat finally gets to a small bay, the captain throws the anchor and a long rope ladder into the water. Some guys take the slave who is the youngest. He is thrown into the water while being tied to a big stone. The young slave goes into the water and doesn't come back, but he comes back to the boat many times. He always brings a beautiful pearl with him when he comes back. The ship's captain looks at the pearls and puts them in a small green bag. The young slave goes back to the boat one last time. He looks very pale and is tired. He has a very pretty pearl in his hand. The pearl is round and white, just like the moon. But there is blood in the young slave's ears and nose. He falls and dies, but the boat's captain laughs. He grabs the young slave's pearl and kills him. The other slaves then threw his body into the water. This pearl is for the scepter of the young king, he adds. This woke up the young king, who screamed and looked out the window at the stars. He quickly fell back to sleep. His third and last dream was this: he's in a nice, warm forest. It has a lot of strange fruit and pretty flowers that are deadly. There are peacocks, monkeys, and snakes all over the place. There are parrots in the trees and snakes in the grass. It looks like a dry river to the young king. There are holes being dug, and big rocks and stones are being cut up. Death and Avarice are in a cave that is very dark. The men are also being watched. Give me 1/3 of your men, Death tells Avarice, but Avarice says no. No. They work for me, she says. When Death hears this, he gets very mad. He tells Malaria to kill 1/3 of the guys. What have you got in your hand? Death wants to know. 3 corn kernels. Then why are you interested? She asks. Death asks, give me 1 grain of corn to plant in my garden. What Avarice says is, no, it's my corn, and she hides the corn in her pocket. When Death hears this again, he gets very angry and calls Fever. Fever shows up in a red robe that looks like fire. He touches 1/3 of the guys and kills them. Death says, give me a grain of corn for my garden now. Avarice answers, no, never. Death is very angry and calls for the plague. The plague comes down from the sky like a bird and kills the rest of the men. Avarice screams and runs into the woods. Death gets on his red horse and speeds off like the wind. Then dangerous beasts like dragons appear from the rivers and slopes. Who were those men? The young king asks in tears. What did they do? A voice behind him says, they were looking for rubies for a king's crown. When the young king turns around, he sees a white man. This person is holding a mirror. He asks, which king? The man in white says, look in this mirror, and you'll see the king. When he looks at himself in the mirror, he screams and wakes up. From his window, he can see the sun. He is going to be crowned today.